From friendly collaboration to deadly competition, the world's two superpowers are playing by different rules. In this special report, we take a closer look at how the U.S. China relationship has evolved, where it's headed, and how it impacts every American. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Two superpowers facing off on the world stage. In terms of innovation and global trade, how are these two giants shaping up?
China's doing very well. The U.S. is going down, let's put it that way.
That's Dr. Robert Atkinson, president of the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, the leading think tank on scientific and technological innovation in the United States. He just released a report comparing how nations are doing in terms of global market share in key industries. It's called the Hamilton Index, assessing national performance and the competition for advanced industries. So what are the key industries it considers?
These are industries you can imagine, like computers and semiconductors, machinery, automobiles, drugs. When you put all those together, those seven industries, China went from about 4% of global production in 1995, and now they're about 23% of global production. So a phenomenal story.
As for how the Chinese regime has been able to make such big leaps and bounds,
a simple way to put it for China would be that they decided to engage in a whole set of unfair practices, massive subsidies, manipulation of their currency to keep the price down, forcing foreign companies to transfer technology that then goes to the domestic Chinese companies. So a whole suite of things that gave them an unfair leg up.
Jon Pelson, author of Wireless Wars, China's Dangerous Domination of 5G and How We're Fighting Back, notes part of the issue is in the way the U.S. views its relationship with the Chinese regime.
It's important we keep the distinction between a business competitor. BMW kicked our butts. Japan and Korea have kicked our butts in the automotive market. And the end result is we get great Japanese, Korean, and German cars, and our own industry upped its game and now makes terrific cars. So you could say the best car in the world today is a Tesla, and that's all American right now. That's okay. That's competition. Everyone wins. China, what we're dealing with here is a geopolitical rivalry that's cloaked and disguised as business competition, and it's not.
That's because one of the key differences lies in how each side does business. For the Chinese regime, politics comes first, while free markets go by trust and credibility. Dr. Atkinson points out an example.
If you cross the Chinese Communist Party, you're a company, let's say, and you do something they don't like, and let's say you do something in the U.S. that the government doesn't like, government can't do anything to you, and they won't do anything to you. They might not like it, but they can't do anything to you unless you break the law. In China, you don't have to break the law for the government to go after you, and the Chinese government does go after you.
That's in terms of companies doing business with the Chinese regime. Now, from a country-to-country point of view, there's the neoliberalism view that global trade is a win-win. But when it comes to the Chinese regime, how is that playing out?
When China says win-win, it means China wins twice. And, to be frank, neoliberals have been saying this for 40 years. And for 40 years, we've had a horrific trade deficit with China. We've had trillions stolen in intellectual property and technology, and literally coercion, forced technology transfer. Where is the win-win?
Nicholas Eftimiades is a retired senior intelligence officer and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He notes how complex the relationship between the two countries is.
It's interesting because there's actually collaboration between our universities and our industries. There's a very intense collaboration, and at the same time, we also have a very, very aggressive competition.
Another part of how we ended up here is how each country views competition. Dr. Atkinson says there are two major differences.
The U.S., number one, we believe in comparative advantage. So Some countries are going to, like we look at Japan and say, oh, Japan, they're great at ceramic technology, they're great at lasers, they're great at that. But we sell them airplanes, for example, or we sell them semiconductors. So we see that as they're good at something, we're good at something.
That first point is where the idea of a win-win comes back into play. Dr. Robert Atkinson notes why that strategy doesn't pan out well for the U.S. when it comes to the Chinese regime.
China doesn't look at it that way. China, if you look at what Xi Jinping has said, if you look at the Made in China 2025 plan, they want to be good at everything. And secondly, the U.S. fundamentally believes in the rule of law and playing by the rules. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we don't have as many weapons as we could use, because we obey the rules. We try to live by the spirit and the rules of the World Trade Organization. China just simply does not.
Pelson notes that when doing business with the Chinese regime,
once the contract is signed, the negotiations begin. They say, oh, what are you talking about? You have to ship us. We just made that agreement. We need that part to finish our product. You agreed on that price. And they'll say, yeah, it's a little tougher than we thought. We're going to charge twice the price. And what are you going to do about it?
Speaking of those unreasonable prices, are these so-called good deals really worth it? Say you save a couple bucks. What's the trade-off?
I got a call from someone whose company makes Internet of Things devices. And he said, we're getting killed by this light bulb out of China. Their prices doesn't make any sense. I mean, we manufacture in low-cost markets, but they're selling it so cheap, it's got to cost more just to ship the product. And he said, it's a light bulb. It doesn't have a microphone. It doesn't have a camera. But what we found is that the app that controls it gets access to all of your personal information on your iPhone or on your Samsung. And they can see where you're going, who you're talking to, and it's going back through encrypted channels through a server back to China.
Now, for those who might argue they're not a government official and don't work in intelligence,
who cares? It's going to be some very boring stuff they're seeing. But if you have an opinion on Facebook that they don't like, you might find that it's not getting posted anymore. People complain that Twitter was shadow banning or blocking people. Well, that's Twitter. That's an American company. You would not want China to say, we're going to start squishing down people that are supporting this presidential candidate. Their opinions aren't going to be as readable by their own friends, for that matter. So I think anybody runs the risk of being censored or affected by Chinese influence. And if you think that's impossible, it's artificial intelligence. They don't have to look at 300 million American accounts. They've got a machine that's already doing that. They're tracking 1.5 billion people every day in China. Another 300 million is not a problem for them.
It goes beyond just the personal level, too. Eftimiades explains.
The problem, even in the academic world, where you do need collaboration, but the problem is when things like theft of research does occur, which occurs far more often than the government actually prosecutes, because most of the time it's not breaking a federal law. So it occurs far more often. But when these things do occur, there are no consequences. There are no consequences for the offending party.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than a year. Here's what to look out for in our second half. We look at the trade war between the U.S. and China, which side started it, and what would happen if the U.S. were to lose key tech and economic races to China. Experts weigh in on the risks from national security to everyday life and offer solutions. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
The performance was enchanting.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It touches you. It really does.
The expertise of the dancers was really, really strong.
To know that it was live music was really fantastic.
We didn't want to miss this.
Make sure you see it.
Have to come. Life-changing.